Welcome back, everybody, to Chatting with the Comic Community, the show where we grab people throughout this amazing comic community, bring them on the show, get to know them a little bit better. And I'm super excited to be back doing this. Of course, I got back to doing this last week with DVH, and my goal is to get to 100 episodes. I have already got the amount of people that I need to get to episode 100, which is already scheduled on the channel. If you go check, it's with Bobby Delegato, the very first guest that I had, and that will be on September 16th. He'll be doing a live giveaway on that show. But we are here today to talk about the guest that I have. But before we get into that, I do have to shout out my channel members. Let's give them a shout out. Of course, we got Beckerman, Legion of Comics, Sector 2815, DJ Lynx, Brian LCS, Gary B, The Casual Comic Guy, Papa Wheelie, Son of a Bruce, Comic Journey, Cliff on Comics, 23 Munch, Biggie Shack, Tape Prime, Ryan Riley, Scotty Z70, Billy Powermax, Dr. Von Hoot, Norin Rad, Still Only 35 Cents, Ben Compton, Lash Cruises, Chop and Drop, Nick's Kicks and Comics, Philtastic, G-Man, Tyler, comiverse, Christina Payne, Pocan Joe, Circumstances, Electrobolt 7, Poppin' Comics 82, Spidey Guy Murph, Southern Comic Geek, Cardboard Crazies, SCA, Meatwad number 1, Agu Rhythm, Collecting with Durs, Dagger Cards, Wellbore, Taylor Winder, Hulk Collector, Black Crown Comics, L Green Machine, Rolando Floors, Not Near Mint, The Comic Vet, Izzyverse NYC, Trevor W, Nick Collects and Gaming, Actual Dracula, Madame, Brother John, Arcade Pop, Space Case Cards, Lord Cuck Simp. Thank you all to the channel members. I truly appreciate every single one of you guys. You too can become a member for only 99 cents. It's a good way to support the channel. It'll give you a special little logo by your name. It unlocks special emojis. You get early access to chatting with the comic community, but you can also support the channel by just leaving a like, leaving a comment down below, and subscribing if you're not already. But that said and out of the way, let's bring out our guest. My guest today is somebody that's new to the comic community. He's been doing it a little bit over a couple of years here. And I'm super excited to bring him out and talk to him because he does do a lot of spotlights on certain comics that we don't know about. And I'm just super excited. So without further ado, let's bring out Tony.
What's going on, man?
What is going on, Tony? Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's an honor to be here, man. I'm glad to get to chat with the community.
Yeah, I'm glad to get to sit down with you, get to know you a little bit more. What excites you in the nerdom, the nerd fan base, I should say. So, for the viewers at home that don't know a lot about you, give them a little bit of a rundown of who you are.
Well, my name's Tony. I started collecting comics in 1987 with Cap 333. That was the first book that I bought at a grocery store. And I've been reading since I was 9 years old. I think one of the first books I read was Bram Stoker's Dracula when I was 9. I always loved reading. Like I said, my comic collecting started in 87 with Cap. And I've been rolling with that ever since. I could tell you, I still have the first 3 comics I ever bought, which was Cap, Transformers 32, and Amazing Spider-Man 292, which got me going. And ever since then, it's just, I haven't looked back and amassed a big collection, but I still love reading to this day. And now my YouTube journey started a couple years ago, and I just got, I just started with, I'd film a few videos and say, well, I'm going to try this, and, we'll see if anybody wants to watch my stuff. It started with Small Town Collectibles. I watched a video he did where he was talking about how he started his channel just to show his kids he could do it. And I went, well, that sounds like a good thing. I'll see what I can do. And it started out as unboxings, usual stuff. And then I said, I want to do something special. And I started the Spotlight, which if you go watch those first 2, you could tell I was really green. And then I think with the third one, which ironically was Fantastic Four #1, I started doing different formats. And it seemed like every so often I just add a little thing till now it's what it is now. And that, coming up this week will be episode 52, which technically I've made 53 because I made that special edition of Death in the Family. But it's been a really fun series. A lot of people love it. I thought I'd only make like 5 or 10 of them, but everybody liked it. So, I mean, hell, as long as I'm having fun and everybody's enjoyed it, maybe it'll make it to episode 100.
Yeah, maybe. So what gave you the inspiration to start doing those certain videos of Spotlight and certain comics that were first appearances of certain characters that you loved?
Well, originally when I came up with the idea, it wasn't necessarily to do just first appearances. I think somewhere down the line it just turned into that. Like the first episode was the kid that collects Spider-Man. Be honest, that's not really a key, but to me it's one of the best Spider-Man stories I've ever read as a solo story. And then like the second one I did was Batman 408, which was the pre-crisis reintroduction of Jason Todd. But I did. It wasn't so much I did that. I actually titled the story "Will Robin Die Tonight?" And because in that story, Dick Grayson almost gets killed by the Joker, which coincidentally, 20 issues later, Joker would kill Jason Todd. So I mean, I threw that in there. And like I said, but yeah, mostly I do first appearances now. But I'm going to do a stint where I just pick my favorite books, and they may not have a key significance, but I'm going to throw some in there as well. And I take requests. I did one for you, Travis. I did one for Gary B. He wanted me to do Spider-Woman. So, I mean, if anybody wants one specific one, if I can find it and do it, they can message me and I'll see what I can do.
Now, is there certain characters that you didn't know a lot about, and through the journey of trying to do research on the characters to do these videos, did you find out a new love for a certain character that you didn't have before?
Oh, yeah. So the best examples is Animal Man. I knew of Animal Man. I read a couple of books, and that was about it. The Swamp Thing, when I decided to do House of Secrets 92, never read the book. I just assumed, okay, this is the first appearance of Alec Holland. Wrong. I didn't even know who the other guy was. I went, wait a minute, you mean there was like another guy before Alec? What the hell? And then reading the first issue of The Crow, knowing about The Crow, the movie and everything, but actually finally getting to sit down. And right now I'm actually, reading the hardcover of the first Crow. And it wasn't so much that I was finally getting to read the story, but reading the story of the creator, what made him do that. And I was like, wow, that was pretty interesting. So yeah, and there's always, there's the typical ones I'll do that we all know about. And I always love finding those little extra nuggets of info about a character that, wow, I didn't know that, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know that Spider-Woman, the original Spider-Woman, the first origin, it was mixed in with Hydra. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool.
That is interesting. I didn't know that either. I don't like. What do you gravitate towards more? Do you gravitate towards more of the Marvel or the DC side, or now like indies are becoming more of like a mainstay? What comics? Because you did mention you liked the Transformers growing up.
Oh, yeah.
You did like Spider-Man growing up, and that and Transformers back then had their comics. It was being published by Marvel. So, would you say you're more of a Marvel guy?
Well, if this was the 80s, I'd have said yes. I grew up, I have every issue of Transformers that Marvel ever did. I completed that collection. It took me 20 years to complete that collection. I finally completed it in the early 2000s. But I've read everything Marvel did. Now, when I first started collecting, it was Marvel. It was mostly, Avengers stuff, Spider-Man stuff, X-Men, and the assorted character tie-in books. Spider-Man had 7 books. I was buying all 7 books. X-Men had all their books. I was buying all their books. And of course, it was a lot cheaper back then. Now, I did read some DC. I read Firestorm. I read Flash because like the first book of the Flash I ever bought was like issue 49 or something, where it had Flash laid out dead on the cover with blood coming down saying "Rest in peace." Where I think he was fighting Vandal Savage at that time, and Vandal had his family like on the sides, and he had to step on this like speed dampening plate or something that took away his speed or something. But anyway, it was an interesting story. I always collected Batman. Superman was on and off until the death of Superman, and I really got into that. And then, I knew of the Titans. I knew of Lobo. I mean, hell, all of us knew about Darkseid just by watching cartoons. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't read as much Marvel as I did back then. I mean, DC as I did Marvel. But now, if you were to ask me, I'm reading Marvel and DC online, mostly through the digital services they provide, because for me, it's cheaper. I have to do a budget, and most of that stuff I'm going towards trades. But unless there's something that just really pops out, and then I'll go grab it if I can. But like the single issues format is mostly independents. Transform the Energon universe, Spawn, Conan, and right now it's the only thing I think. Oh, and something that's killing the children. I love that stuff.
I get that by reading digital too, because I there is certain comics I was just like, okay, I want that in my collection. I'm reading it, but I also want it in my collection. And then some comics I'm just like, you know what? I'll read it, but do I really want it in my collection? So I'm kind of at that point where I'm just like I'm hesitant of continuing to buy physical copies rather than digital. Do you find yourself doing that as well?
I don't buy as much. I mean, most of the time when I buy digital now, it's mostly just to do the spotlights. Like
Okay.
like when I did, well, like a good example is when I do a Golden Age spotlight. I don't have the first Batman or the first Superman or the first Green Lantern.
Well,
But
why not? Why not? I
well,
don't
I mean,
understand why you don't.
I do technically now through the greatness of facsimile reprints as, but you know, because and that's the thing about the anthology. A lot of people may not realize, like action and detective, they started as anthologies. So if I go to try to find it online, they may have part of the story, which is I'm dealing with Journey into Mystery. I've only found half of that story for this issue. But if you buy the digital copy or the facsimile, you're getting the whole thing. So I mean, and I try to do as much of it as I can, but um, I will buy digital if it catches my eye. Like, Gary, when he did his Need book for Amazon, I bought the digital and the physical, so that way I could read. If I'm at work, if I want to read it, I can flip through it on there. But yeah, but I still, like I said, I still buy physical. I still want to hold it in my hands. Interestingly enough, I didn't buy this digital, but when I won Do a Powerbomb and Murder Falcon from Brian LCS's, I think it was channel membership, and both of those were on the list of things to pick up, but I hadn't bought. And I read both of them, and I love Murder Falcon. I thought it was good. But when I read Do a Powerbomb, it actually made me go buy the single issues. So, I mean, like my last live show, I was showing off the last of the Do a Powerbombs I needed to complete the set. So, I mean, but yeah, if it really gets my attention, I'll go out and look for it.
Yeah. So you did mention Firestorm earlier. I do want to bring that back up because I don't hear anybody talk about Firestorm. Of course, I know the character only due to the Flash TV show. Is the only time the character ever showed up. And a little bit in Justice League Unlimited. Now, are you are you a huge fan of Firestorm, or is that just a character that you loved back then and not so much today?
Well, if he had I'll be honest with you, if he had a series going right now, I'd buy it. Back in the day, I was really big into Firestorm. It was just something about, I don't remember what iteration of Super Friends it was because it went by Challenge of the Super Friends and whatever. But there were some episodes where he was on there, and I was like, man, he is so cool. I mean, everybody loves Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash and so forth. But I there was something about Firestorm when I see him in that cartoon. I was like, man, he is freaking badass. And I had his figure back in the day. And then so when I started collecting comics, I went, oh wow, there's a Firestorm comic. And of course, I didn't start with issue 1. It was like issue 60 something. So I'm going back and getting trying to collect the run. That's one of the runs I'm working on this year. I've got like 7 different runs I'm working on. I've got like my 4 main ones I think I'll always be working on because I don't see myself actually owning every issue. But then, like, I'm working on Firestorm and I'm working on the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider. And I would love to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this the Durs method, since he's doing this with The Walking Dead. Once I get every issue of Volume 2 of Firestorm, I already got the first limited series, which was 5 issues, which was really awesome to actually finally get Firestorm's first appearance. Once I get that 100 issues done, I'm going to go back and read every one of them. So that'll be pretty cool.
I had that same thing with the Eclipse of Darkness Within. I was collecting those a while back. People ended up like sending me some and that to complete that run. It was mostly annuals, and I said I was going to read the entire run. That's been my way since the beginning. And it's a good idea. Yeah. Get them all and then read them all at once. Is a perfect idea.
I was gonna say, you mentioned Eclipso, and I remember that when that Darkness Within, I remember when it came out, and there was one of them that I always thought it was unique that had the little diamond thing. I don't know what you call it, like a little plastic diamond.
Yeah, it was a plastic diamond. I have it there too.
Be honest with you, I may go back and try to get the Eclipso books because it's a good story. I remember that's the one where he was. I remember it vaguely, where they were like kind of taunting it was kind of corrupting the other heroes or something.
Yeah, and it went across multiple annuals.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just it went across multiple annuals. Then it landed on a mini series, kind of just 1 to 18.
Yeah.
Calypso, and then of course you had the Calypso Darkness Within issue number 1 and Darkness Within issue number 2, and then of course the 1 to 18. And then, of course, a little bit of Starman added into it. Like the reading order is a little bit weird because you have it spread across multiple annuals. You have a couple of, I think, 3 issues of Starman, the current run of Starman that was coming in at the time. 3 issues of that is tied in with it. And then, of course, there was Valor number 1 also added into it when Mon-El became Valor.
I know of Valor. I just didn't read Valor.
Yeah, I like Mon-El more.
That's like when I went and did, like we was talking about the spot. When I did the spotlight for Animal Man and was reading about Grant Morrison's run, I went, shoot, I want to go back and read that. That sounds interesting.
So you did say you had 5 or 7 runs that you're completing. You mentioned 2 of them. What are the other 5? Because I'm really curious about those.
So the 4 that I will always be working on is Captain America, Amazing Spider-Man, Batman, and Uncanny X-Men. Now, I have significant runs for all 4 of these. Cap, I have a run from 262 to the end of the volume, 454. So basically, I'm working my way backwards. And I was fortunate enough to get issue 100 from the C3 auction. That blew my mind. I never thought I'd ever own that book. And then Amazing Spider-Man, I have a run from, Lord, I want to say it's 246 to 423. And then X-Men, I've got a run from 170 to 370 of Uncanny. And I've got assorted issues throughout. I've got a few of the Dark Phoenix. I'm trying to work on. I need 4 issues to complete my Dark Phoenix set. And yes, one of them is the Dazzler, but I'm getting it for the Dark Phoenix, not the Taylor Swift spec. And then Batman, I need 12 issues, and I'll have a run of Batman from 401 to 525. So I'm working on that stuff. And then
what other 4 issues?
Huh?
What 4 issues?
Oh, no, 12 issues. I need 12 of those. It's like, I always get the numbers wrong, but it's like 4, because I can never remember when 10 Nights of the Beast begins. It's like 416 or 417. I need 412 to like 4, the issue before 10 Nights of the Beast before it starts. I need those like 5, 6 issues. Then I need 443 to 449, and then I'll have the set.
Nice.
But and the other 2 that I'm trying to think of offhand, because my brain's trying to just. But Well, that's 6 counting the Ghost Rider and the Firestorm. But now the Ghost Rider and the Firestorm, I'm trying to work on specifically. The Firestorm is scattered out. I went crazy. 22 comics around Thanksgiving told me, "Hey man, they got a sale on my comic shop. You can get they got a bunch of Firestorm for $1." So I went through there and bought everyone they had for $1. It was like 22 issues, and they're all spread out. So matter of fact, whenever I won Trev's box of comics that I won from him, it's like a mystery box. He asked me what Firestorm I had. I said, what Firestorm I needed. I said, dude, let me just show you what I have. So I did a little click on the screenshot on the CLZ app that I had and showed him what I had. So I was like, it's easier for me to tell you what I got than tell you what I ain't got. But the Danny Ketch stuff, I need 53 to 93. That's it.
53 to 93. That's it. That's still 40 issues.
Oh yeah,
that's still quite a bit if you really think about it.
I was lucky enough to get an issue #1 in 2014, and I took it to Comic Conway, which is a little con here in Conway, Arkansas. Met Howard Mackey and Javier Soteris and got them both to sign it.
Oh, nice.
And I got to meet Tom Lyle before he passed away. Man, yeah, I love meeting Howard and Javier. Don't get me wrong. Me and Howard talked about the Clone Saga. I learned a lot of stuff about the Clone Saga that a lot of people don't know about from the editorial manager standpoint. We had a good conversation about that, and getting to talk to Tom and his love. He had an absolute love for Tim Drake. Matter of fact, that day he had a blank sketch cover. He was drawing Tim Drake on the cover to be given away at that con.
Did you win it?
No, I'd already left by then. It was for the next day. I'd already left.
Oh, that sucks.
But
so switching gears here, comics is not your only passion. As like you do a live stream every Saturday. So link is down below. Go check out Tony's channel on YouTube. But you do a live stream, and I came across this one live stream that I'm usually a part of, where you're talking music, and you have an undenying love for music. How did that become?
Well, basically, that just, growing up in the 80s, it was, for me, it was comics, cartoons, MTV. In the 90s, it was Dungeons and Dragons. But mostly in the 80s, it was, what I watched on MTV, which was mostly when they played music videos. And, watching the Headbangers Ball, I listened to everything. I listened from everything from Amy Grant to Megadeth. Back then, I listened to Venom and Rigor Mortis. My favorite group of all time is Kiss. I talked in the live show that the only group that surpasses Kiss is Stryper. You can go back and hear that story in that show. But music has always been important to me. And mostly back then, I gravitated more toward the 80s hair bands because that was, I didn't care for the lipstick and spandex, but I mean, I thought you get rid of the glam and all that stuff. And a lot of those bands put out a lot of great music. So me and my buddies always talked about having a band. And I said, I don't think we're pretty enough to be in a band,
So you never pursued playing any instruments in that, or do you play instruments?
Well, okay, I have a guitar that's been setting that I keep saying I'm going to learn how to play it. Back then, I was trying to learn. My biggest passion was drums. I love playing drums. Now, I never owned a set until I was an adult, and then I didn't have room to set it up. But I would play on a set. I never was actually good. My big influence was Eric Carr of Kiss. I mean, his attitude, the way he played with the double bass, just really kicked. They say that Eric was the heartbeat of Kiss in the 80s, and he was. I may make some people mad, but I always liked Eric a little bit more than I did the original drummer, which I love Peter Criss. Nothing will ever beat his drum solo in 100,000 years. Having said that, though, but I always liked Eric. And I did something that it's almost the automatic reverse of what you would do. When Eric died, I quit playing. A lot of people would keep playing to honor the person's memory, but I quit and I never picked it back up.
Now, why is that? Why did you just didn't feel it anymore? You just didn't have the
No,
heart to do it?
I lost my heart to play. It was like something in me died when he passed away, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, you know. And yeah, I mean, it was a guy I never met, but he was an inspiration to me nonetheless. And it's just, I guess I just, I just quit. I mean, which I say that, but I mean, hell, I mean, even I'd sit behind a drum kit. I mean, and I just play around a little bit. I mean, if I had the room and a nice soundproof room so I wouldn't annoy my wife, I would buy me a nice drum kit and just go in there after work and just beat the hell out of them.
I think you can get those new drum kits now, like the electric ones, where they're all plastic, and you have to wear a headset, and they give off the same sound, but you can still
Yeah.
play them. Do you ever think of getting one of those?
Never really thought about it.
Because that's a good way to just continue to doing drums and stuff, having the passion to do it. It'd sound the same to you, but it wouldn't sound the same to anybody else. They just hear the you hitting rubber,
Yeah.
which
Kind of like the rock band drum kit.
in a way, a little bit more stable than the drum kit from Rock Band, but
Well,
a little bit.
that's a funny story because when I worked at Walmart, I had a buddy. We were all into rock band and everything, but he was really into it. He bought the drum kit and all that stuff, and he come over to the house one day and we set up the drum kit to play the game. And I said, "I'm gonna do the drums," and he goes, "Well, you got to have a certain." And he didn't even get that out of his mouth. And I was going. He goes, "Okay, Tony's got it. Let's go."
Yeah, I they're they're good, but like I mean, like these ones are like actual, like they're set up like the drums, like a drum set would be, and they're a little bit more heavy duty plastic than you'd get from Rock Band.
Oh yeah,
Not
they'll last.
not to say that their equipment's not good, but this one's a little bit more advanced.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say there's a big difference because that's probably more professionals. They're building their stuff to last.
So is it just rock and heavy metal that you're into? Is there other genres of music that you love?
Now, believe it or not, I still listen to country music, and when I say country music, I mean the old stuff. Like, I'll listen to George and Conway and Tammy and Johnny Cash, and I listen to Garth Brooks, Brooks and Dunn, George Strait. I mean, believe it or not, if this would have happened in the '90s, I probably wouldn't have cared as much. But when Toby Keith passed away, I was like, damn, man. I remember a time when I didn't care for Toby Keith. So, but you know, I think it was around 2001 when he did that Angry American song. I just really, I was like, man, I'm gonna go back and listen to his stuff. And when I did, I was like, I was a little harsh on him. So, but I listen to that. I listen to contemporary Christian music, which is like your Sandy Patty, your Amy Grant, your Michael W. Smith, Carmen. Those are all old groups. I listened to hell in the late '80s, early '90s. I grew up listening to Ice-T, Two Live Crew. I listened to a little bit of NWA and Public Enemy. That was really hard to get here in Arkansas at the time. Ice-T was my big thing. His Home Invasion album, when he transitioned and started a heavy metal band called Body Count, I was really into that. I got in trouble. Oh, me and my buddy got pulled over because we was blaring Cop Killer on the main street of Caraway. Oh my Lord. So I mean, but
Now, is there any bands that you've not seen in concert yet that you want to see, and who are some of your favorite ones that I know this is kind of like a Dr. Von Hoots question from like between the lines, like worst concert, best concert, and that but I'm curious to know if there is like a band that you haven't seen in concert yet that you do want to see, and who are some of your favorite ones that you did see in concert.
all right, now bands that I would love to see. I want to see Iron Maiden at least once before I die. I love Iron Maiden. Been a fan since the Seventh Son album came out. I would love to see Judas Priest, even though some of the original members are not in the band anymore. I want to say one of them passed away, but I may be wrong. I don't think Ian's passed away. Those are my big two. Another band that I love so much that one of my buddies got me hooked onto in the 90s was Sabotage. And a lot of people's not going to know about Sabotage without mentioning the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, because they're the heavy metal element of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Paul O'Neill and John Oliva were the ones that helped set up the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Paul's gone now. But there are rumblings that Sabotage, John's working on a new album. They may do one more final album, do one more final tour. And I may have to drive all the way to Dallas, Texas to see them, but I may do that just so I can see them. Now, as far as groups that I've seen, believe it or not, my first concert was Amy Grant. I had a front row seat to go see Amy Grant during the Heart in Motion tour in the 90s. I got to see Kiss. Would have been at least three. See, I see them. I was supposed to see them in 92 during Revenge, but Paul got sick, so they canceled the show. I got to see Great White and Trickster, which was awesome. Me and my cousin argue to this day about who put on the better show between Great White and Trickster, which I thought was Great White. Still maintain that. I did see Kiss during the reunion tour. I seen them during their first farewell tour and the last farewell tour. And then I got to see Motley Crue during their supposed final tour. And that was when I finally got to see Alice Cooper as well. I loved Alice Cooper. I've always loved Alice Cooper. And I've got to see Stryper. I got to meet them in 2019 in Graceland with my daughter. So that was pretty cool. And then I've seen some country bands. I mean, I got to go see Alabama with my wife last year. So, I mean.
How was that?
That was actually pretty good. I enjoyed the hell out of it. They put on a really good show.
For the Kiss concert, did you go full makeup?
No.
No?
Although I thought about it.
I don't know if you could go, like, you could say that you're a Kiss fan if you didn't go in full makeup.
Oh no,
I'm just saying.
Well, there's not. I mean, there was only a few people in makeup. I will tell you this funny thing: the reunion show was the first time you always automatically pair drugs with rock and roll concerts, but the reunion show was the only time that I ever knew where somebody actually tapped me on the shoulder and asked me if I wanted to hit this, and I went, "No, man," because by then I'd quit. I'd quit smoking weed back then, which I didn't really smoke it a lot to begin with, but I was like, "No, man," and he just passed it to somebody else. But I was like, "Well, okay, that's the first time I've seen that." And they actually had a dude show up, and he was dressed up like Ace Frehley, and he costume and everything, and everybody went nuts because they thought this dude was actually Ace until he sat down in the seat, and they were like, "Okay, that's not Ace."
Yeah, he's not going to be sitting down here. He should be up there playing.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. That I have never seen Kiss in concert. Like the heaviest band that I saw. Ooh, that's rough. Actually thinking about it, maybe it's not even that. Oh, I've seen Metallica live. That was about it. Metallica, Coheed and Cambria, Seether. Seether's really good live. Just saying that out there, guys. Go see Seether live. They put on a great live show.
Well, and the thing about Kiss is all the things you may hear about their live show is true. You listening to a record's one thing, but actually going and experiencing the live show and actually being there, that's pretty cool. You can feel the heat from the pyros. I'm just saying. I mean,
that's amazing, man. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's switch up gears here because I'm interested. I always have to ask this because I'm a big cartoon guy. My co-host for Between the Lines, huge cartoon guy as well. I want to know some of the cartoons that you grew up with, some of the unique ones, some of the ones that probably everybody's watched, but I want to know some of the ones that you grew up with.
Well, first and foremost, Transformers. Grew up watching Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Voltron, Mask. I'm trying to think another one. I might mention He-Man. The standard. Hell, I even watched Challenge of the GoBots. the usual Saturday morning stuff. In the '90s, it was X-Men, Batman, Spider-Man. Didn't really watch Fantastic Four that much. Of course, back in the '90s, I was almost in my 20s, but watched a lot of odd cartoons that maybe only lasted a season, like the Dukes of Hazzard, Alf, Mr. T, Rambo, Turbo Teen. I mean, there was a show called Kid Video about this pop band that got transported to another world and they were trying to get home. A lot of those were fairly cheesy, but they were all right.
They're all right.
I
Now,
also remember one. I think it was the Visionaries. I don't remember much about the show, but I remember watching Visionaries.
so of course, I'm gonna go back to Transformers here because
Uh,
like that's I love Transformers too. I'm more of the Beast Wars Transformers, as most know. I am. So did you get into the show first, or was it the movie that brought you into that world?
oh, for me, it was the cartoon. I, I
It's cartoon.
I remember when Transformers debuted, and it was that first 3 episodes of More Than Meets the Eye, and they played them on TV, and I just sat there glued watching them, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Of course, when you watch the cartoon, you got to buy the toys, and I don't own any of those anymore like I used to. I have the unfortunate tale of strapping cherry bombs to my Optimus Prime and watching him blow to pieces. I really regret that now. um, yeah, first it was the cartoon, then it was the toys, and then it was the comics. So I mean, and then it just went from there. I went and watched Transformers the animated. I'm going to betray my age, but I went and watched the animated Transformers movie in the theaters. Knew nothing about it. Ready to go watch my favorite robots in disguise. Little did I know I was going to go watch my childhood die. I didn't, and only because they were trying to phase out the old toys and make room for new ones.
That is true. So you now, do you still love the Transformers movie, or do you think like the cartoon was better than the animated movie?
Well, I always kind of grouped them as part of the same journey. You got season 1 and 2 of the cartoon, then you had the movie, and then you had and then you had the season 3. And if you want to call it season 4, it was only 3 or 4 episodes. I wish they wouldn't have cut it off like they did, because I know in Japan it went like a whole nother 2 seasons afterwards. But
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's like they're called something else. It was like Headmaster something. There's like 2 or 3 other seasons that continued on, because I know when Japan they started doing it in Japan, they killed Prime again. Uh, I know Takara was against them bringing Prime back in the cartoon after they killed him in the movie. I mean, but and that's the same for GI Joe. After the GI Joe movie, I believe a different production company they did GI Joe Series 2 for like a couple seasons.
Now, did you like the Transformers movies that they've come out with? Like, I know some are hits, some are misses. Of course, Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast being too highly praised. But did you enjoy what Michael Bay Michael Bay brought us with the first couple of Transformers movies?
Yeah, the original. I love the original first 3 that Michael did. I liked Age of Extinction to an extent. Um, I'll be honest. I hated The Last Night, and then which was funny because that's what my disdain for that movie was only for one reason, but that made me hold off watching Bumblebee, even though I was watching screenshots of Starscream and everybody looking like they did in G1. I just really wasn't so sure. But I went ahead and watched it, loved Bumblebee, and then I finally got to watch Rise of the Beast when it came to the streaming, because I didn't have the money to go watch it in theaters, and loved it. And I was like, because I'm going to be honest with you, back in the '90s, I wasn't a big Beast Wars fan. It was more, don't get me wrong, I love the stories. Some of the stories were great. It was the computer animation that I didn't really care for. It was just, I mean, granted, the time they were in, they should get credit for the time they were in trying to do that computer animation. But I was stupid back then. I wouldn't want to give them the credit back then.
I still tell people to today, like it's gonna be like if they're be like, oh, I'm gonna go check out Beast Wars because of Rise of the Beast. I'm just like I warn them. It's like It's going to be rough to watch. It's not like what you're used to. They
Yeah,
do as the season progresses, it does like once you get to season 2 and then even season 3, they're getting the hang of what they're doing with the CGI. Um, but like the first season is a little rough to get through. It's really blocky and it's visually hard to look at compared to what we have now.
yeah,
So go into it with that thought and that. But even at the time, people were still having a hard time watching it, being like, "Oh well, I watched my Transformers, and now this is totally different, not just by different characters, but by different animation as well." So a lot of people fell off at that point, which is totally understandable.
yeah. I mean, I've got friends that I grew up with. I was a G1 guy. They were a Beast Wars person. So I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the great things about Transformers. Throughout the different decades, there's always that one show version that brought in new people and got them to watch the show, and then maybe got them to buy some comics. I mean, I know Dreamwave did it for a little while. IDW did. I hardly read any of the IDW stuff. I did read a little bit. They did I think they're the ones that did Regeneration 1. I read that. I didn't read as much as DVH did. I mean, even though I'm tempted to go back and buy some trades, but it was like when they were talking about doing the Energon stuff, and I was like, okay, so what's a good trying to come up with a new idea for Transformers now? I think would be hard, but they're pulling it off. So I mean,
Yeah, I've been really enjoying the new series. And like to speak on DVH, going back and read them, Mark from Legion of Comics has actually gone back and read a lot of the or the older stuff, I should say, to get like ready for this Energon universe.
yeah,
And what they're doing with the Transformers universe, adding Duke and adding the G.I. Joe, I'm hoping that they do that within the movies too. Spoilers if you've not seen Rise of the Beast, they're kind of integrating that into what's next for that kind of universe. And the movie did good, so I hope to see that very, very soon.
I think I was getting on Durs's nerves a little bit because he was buying some of the older stuff and he'd pull out one and be like, oh, that's the first Jetfire. He'd pull out another one. Oh, that's the first Constructicons. That's the first Dinobots. That's the first this. That's the first that. He'd be like, okay, okay, Tony.
So
Because
you
I
know
mean,
your stuff.
yeah, I mean it's pretty, and I love seeing Mark and Durs going back and getting these old books. And to be honest, and like DVH, I heard, he said he has a few sporadically. If I had extras, man, I'd be shipping a bunch of them to England so DVH could get them. But I love them. I love seeing people go back and rediscover the Marvel stuff for the first time because man, when I was collecting, when I was trying to get the run, that was back when there was no eBay. It was either flea markets or comic shops, and you hoped for the best. I mean, I bought my last issue off of eBay, but I mean, there was a lot of flea market going through a lot of flea market bins trying to get that series.
So I know this is a touchy subject for most, but since we're still on the topic of cartoons, I'm curious to know because we've had Masters of the Universe get remade. We got Transformers redone so many different times with like Transformers Prime came out back in 2000s and still cartoons to this day and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are still coming out with stuff. What's a cartoon that you hope gets a revamp, whether it be a movie or just an animated series?
Hmm. The easy go to for me would be Voltron. Voltron, I think, was a very unique series when it came out, and I piss off a lot of people because I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't that much of a Power Rangers person, although I did like Amy Jo Johnson. Uh, I mean, but everybody like, well, man, they're five individuals that get together and you know they kick a lot of ass, and then they get it, they get in their Zords, and the Zords formed one big Megazord. I went, so it's Voltron. No, it's not, but it's Voltron. I pissed a lot of people off with that. But I'd like, yeah, Now I know, what was it, a few years ago? Was it Netflix that did a Voltron series? I think.
I think so, and I didn't hear too much about it, to be honest with you. Like, and that's not to say that it was bad or anything, because if it was bad, I'd hear all of the bad, or like all of the bad reviews of it. But I didn't hear any good reviews or bad reviews, so I didn't hear anything about that show. So maybe not a lot of people watched it. So
I would actually, just to see what they could do with the special effects and technology, see what a live action Voltron would look like. I don't know who I would get to cast it, but and I mean, what the hell? Since we're talking about it, it's not a cartoon or anything. I'd like to see a live action Firestorm again, but I always thought
yeah,
they killed Ronnie just a little too early.
yeah, just a little bit, because like that was like right off the bat, like just
Yeah,
like we didn't even get him for, so what was it, we got him for a little bit
yeah,
at the end, and then that was it.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
uh,
don't get me wrong. I like the other guy. I couldn't even tell you the actor's name. The guy that the black guy that
oh,
played, but I liked
oh
him.
yeah.
He was great. He was great. I mean,
Now
I,
who would the two people be, like who would the people that would fuse together be? Would it
well,
be Ronnie
I would
and the
probably
professor?
start it with, yeah, I think I'd start with Ronnie and Professor Stein. And as far as casting, I don't know. Ronnie, you want to go with somebody young and probably, I was going to say impetuous, but that's probably not the right word. And he's not young anymore, but Chris Hemsworth probably would have made a good Ronnie back in the day before he got all buffed up. You don't want some buffed up guy.
No, you'd want like just a little athletic. That's about
Yeah.
it. Not like super buff, but athletic.
But now I was gonna say, if we could get him, I thought the guy, I never can remember his name, but the guy that played Professor Stein in The Flash did a
Yeah.
great job. Um, but yeah, I thought he did a great job, because you want an older guy playing Stein, you want a younger guy playing Ronnie, and then even if they wanted Jackson, Jackson,
Jackson was his name, yeah.
yeah.
Was the other guy's name.
And if you want to go the other route and get Jackson, you still want to do. I would make. I hate to say it, but I'd make Jackson a little bit smarter than Ronnie. I mean, Jackson. I would say Jackson and Ronnie suffered from the. What would you call it? The spirit of youth. They were hopeful but naive. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Jackson had a little bit more street smarts than Ronnie did.
And he did well in the show. He became like the mechanic of the Wave Riders, so
Yeah,
he
yeah,
did. He was a little bit smarter than, in that way too.
yeah. I was trying to think of the guy's name, but if I remember, if I'm getting my actors right, the guy that played Stein in Flash and Legends, that was I can't think of his name, but he played Sydney's dad in Alias, if I remember right. If I'm thinking of the right guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of his name too. Like I could picture him and I know who
Yeah.
he is, but I just he also was in the Orville at one point.
Now, I even want to say, and I might be wrong. I may be thinking of a different guy. No, I was thinking of the guy that was the FBI director in Alias that was in Lost, Terry something. I love Jennifer Garner in Alias. I'm just saying, I've got every season on DVD. I've got every season on digital. That's where I discovered Jennifer Garner. I always joke too, because I was like, in Alias, you can tell the episode where they stopped filming and let her go film Daredevil, and then they came back and started filming, because I think it was sometime in season 2. It might have been season 2. She fought a certain way, and all of her fights were a certain way. And then when she came back, she started fighting with two-handed weapons and stuff, and her fighting style was a little bit different. And I was like, okay, that's where they cut it, and that's where she went and filmed Daredevil.
That's where she got some training and that and she yeah, okay. Are you excited for the news that she might show up in Deadpool 3? She is
Absolutely.
apparently going to be in it.
Absolutely, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably one of the very select few people that will go on record and say that I love the Elektra movie. I love the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. I mean, a lot of people say that the director's cut is the better version, and for to be honest, it probably is. But to me, there's a lot of scenes that are just a little too drawn out. But I mean, all the extra courtroom stuff in the director's cut is fine, but there's a lot of it I don't think is necessary. But I thought that Daredevil had a great cast. I mean, I would have loved seeing Colin in the actual Bullseye outfit, but I mean, hey. And Michael Clark, was it Michael Clark Duncan that played the Kingpin?
Yeah, he was perfect. I know they race swapped him and that, but it worked. It
They,
worked. Name me somebody else, but like before Vincent D'Onofrio, you look at him and you'd be like, you know what? Like he is Kingpin. He is the live action Kingpin.
yeah, and it worked. Sometimes when they do that, it works. I mean, and a lot of little trivia. If you never watched it, he's not the first person to ever play Kingpin in live action. There was a television made for TV movie. They made some Incredible Hulk movies. They did The Return that had they had Thor in it. Nobody really talks about the trial of the Incredible Hulk, which had this guy playing Daredevil. I don't remember his name. And the Daredevil wasn't that great. The costume wasn't that great, but it was a made for TV movie. They had John Rhys Davies playing the Kingpin. The guy that played Gimli in Lord of the Rings played the Kingpin. So, I mean,
That's insane. That's I could yeah no I can't see him as Kingpin either. Go back to Michael Douglas
and
or
that
Michael
movie,
Duncan.
that same Hulk movie I'm talking about that had him playing the Kingpin is also, I believe, it's credited as the very first Stan Lee cameo.
Oh wow.
I believe that's true. Yeah, they do a dream sequence where Bruce is having a dream, and they have the jury and Stan sitting in the juror's box.
That well, somebody in the comments or somebody that's watching this now will let us know, of course, if that's true or not. But that's surprising if it is. Like that's cool that you know that. I love it.
Well, I always really wanted. Now, granted, that wasn't the Thor we wanted in the Return of the Incredible Hulk, but I loved. I think his name was Eric Kramer. He was in. There was a. Oh, he was in a Disney. I think it was a Disney show with. I can't even think of the name of it now. Good Luck Charlie or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I watched Good Luck Charlie. That was out when I was younger. Yeah,
yeah. I think he played the dad in that, if I remember correctly. But
that's
back
who played
then,
him.
huh?
That's who played Thor.
Yeah, that's the guy that played Thor in the Return of the Incredible Hulk. And
Oh
that
wow.
see, I remember him from the Return of the Incredible Hulk. He played, uh, was it Big John or whatever in Robin Hood Men in Tights? He played. But and back when they were doing the Return of the Incredible Hulk, they were teasing the Thor spinoff. So I mean, but it never happened. Of course, Bruce got, or not Bruce, but the guy that played David Banner, Bill Bixby, he got cancer, and that's why they made the last one the death, because they were planning on just doing a bunch of TV movies, and then Bill got cancer and passed away. So, if I'm not mistaken, they barely got the last one out before he finally passed away.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. So moving on. Last question of the night or the day. I see a system behind you, arcade system in that. So I want to know, like, you must be a huge gamer into some games in that. What games did you grow up with, and what games do you play today?
All right. Well, I grew up. The first system I had was Atari 2600, the wood grain model. My first Pac Man was not the greatest looking Pac Man. It was the Atari, and Atari was Atari what it was. And as an old man would go, by God, we had an Atari and we were grateful. But and then the NES, Super Nintendo. I never owned a Sega, but I knew I had friends that did, so I played theirs. My dad bought a Sega in the '90s, and we ended up playing PGA and the assorted X-Men, whatever. But the games that I grew up playing was Contra, Castlevania, Mario, of course Mario, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, never beat Tyson, Mega Man, the standard, Ghosts and Goblins. I'm always a big Castlevania. Castlevania is my go-to. I've played just about every console version that's came out. I love Zelda. I wasn't a big Metroid fan until Super Metroid. Oh, Super Metroid is my favorite Metroid game, still is. My favorite Zelda is still Ocarina of Time. Now, the last few systems, I've not bought a PS5 because, hell, man, I had an Xbox 360 with 40 games and probably played 20 of them. I noticed starting with the progression of the 360, I'd buy games, I'd play them a little bit, and I'd put them on the shelf. And my playing lessened. I played the hell out of Grand Theft Auto. I played the hell out of Red Dead Redemption. And then I got my PS4, and I've got a few games with it. I played Friday 13th. I played Grand Theft Auto 5. I played the hell out of that. Just got that PS4 version of Red Dead Redemption. Playing the hell out of that. But I even bought the Final Fantasy VII Remake, hopeful that they were going to do the whole thing on PS4. And they said, nope, you got to buy PS5. I was like, screw
Nope.
that. I'm
Yeah.
like, screw that. Now, I have went on record and said if there was a way that the PS5 was backwards compatible, I'd probably buy one. But my playing now is more towards, I'm playing more of the old stuff. I like the arcade. Like my wife got me this for Christmas. It's got Galaga on it. It's got just about every Pac-Man you can shake a stick at, except for Miss Pac-Man. But I mean, I'll just sit there and just play the hell out of Galaga. Galaga in the arcades for me, it was Galaga and Donkey Kong. Those are my go-tos. And Miss Pac-Man. Those were my go-tos.
I always find it fascinating that people found a love for Miss Pac-Man over Pac-Man, and
Yeah,
I wasn't in that generation, so I don't know the fascination with it's a new Pac-Man, it's just Miss Pac-Man. Put an MS in front of it, and it'll be good. So what was the fascination with getting Miss Pac-Man
well,
over Pac-Man?
I don't know because Pac-Man is good. But to be honest, it's the same boards over and over and over again. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever played it to the point to where we get different boards. I mean, we may have, but like Miss Pac-Man, there was enough there. Like you knew you had to play 2 stages, and then you get to what they called day meet or something like that. And then you played a few more, and you got another little another sub screen thing. There was like it was like the first stages, they meet, the chase, and then there was something else. It seemed like there was a progression. The movement with the Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man was a little bit faster than Pac-Man. And to me, it seemed like the ghosts were a little bit faster too. There's more of a challenge. And I don't know, it just seemed like Miss Pac-Man was just more fun than Pac-Man. Maybe it's just the players, what they enjoy. It's like
That's fair.
another thing. As much as I love Donkey Kong, and I love Donkey Kong, I actually prefer playing Donkey Kong Jr. more than I do Donkey Kong. So I mean,
That's fair. Yeah, it's just it. I always remember hearing people saying that their love for Miss Pac-Man, and I never understood why it was better than the original Pac-Man over, and that everybody always gravitated more towards Miss Pac-Man than Pac-Man. So
yeah,
I was just curious, just curious.
that, that's like I didn't find out until maybe 5 years ago. I've heard of Galaga's been around forever. I never knew Galaga was a sequel to Galaxian. So I mean, you learn something new all the time.
That is true. Speaking of learning something new, we just sat here for an hour learning about you, getting to know you, Tony. And I want to say thank you so much for sitting down with us, and um, introducing most to you, because some of the viewers that are watching right now are probably just tuning in and seeing you for the first time. And to those people, I say go check him out on YouTube, check him out on Instagram. The links are down below. I got one final question before we jump out of here.
All right.
What is one series besides Do a Power Bomb do you recommend people go out and read?
I'm going to say always something that's killing the children. If you love horror stuff, I love the journey that Erica's on and the whole thing with the House of Slaughter. Um, I picked it up at issue 9 and I went back and got every issue and been reading it since then. Now, granted, my issue 1 and 7 are not first prints, but maybe one of these days I still got them. And another one would be Conan. Ever since Conan has returned from Titan Comics, to me, that has been a very strong series. It reminds me a lot of the old Marvel stuff from the 70s that they did when they did Conan. And it's just been badass. I always say, I used to say there's 2, now there's 3, but my go-tos every month is Spawn and Something's Killing Children. I love Spawn and Something's Killing Children. Those are still my reads. Spawn. And I'm like everybody else. Gunslinger is my favorite.
I've fallen off from reading anything Spawn related recently. I'm still picking some of them up in that, and still have like my Spawn is in my PC for good. Any Spawn that I pick up, it's in my PC. Um, but reading wise, I've fallen off of it. I do want to continue with the compendiums and that get the
Yeah.
third and the fourth and that and continue with those stories. Read both of them. I used to do a show reading the first 50 issues with somebody else in the community. And yeah, I just want to get back to reading those before I pick up any others. And to a certain point, you can pick them up for fairly cheap after
Yeah,
like 300. So I'm not too worried about picking them up right now.
Let's see, and it's funny you mentioned the compendiums because I've got the first 2 as well. I got one of my brothers. I let him borrow my first one, and then he went and bought every one of them that's come out. He's on board. He's buying the compendiums. He's buying the trades of Gunslinger, and all that. But I'm like you. I want to get the compendiums. I joke about getting the first 300 in compendium because that's probably honestly the only way I'm going to be able to afford some of them. And I'm really interested now. I'm really vested to see who's going to sit on the empty throne of hell. I'm not sure. I've got a few ideas, but I think I'm wrong on all mine. So, but that'd be interesting. I think.
Keep theorizing, man. Keep theorizing because that's the fun of it too. You can like with comics today and like TV shows and stuff. It's good to theorize of what's going to happen. Oh, what's the water cooler kind of thing? Like, oh, what's going to happen next in this comic? What's going to happen next in this TV show? Or I guess the movies they're usually, unless there's a sequel, be like, oh, what's going to happen in the second one? Yeah. So keep theorizing, keep talking about them because that's what we're here to do is talk about the things that we love and have fun talking about them. That being said, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you're new to the channel. Go down, follow, and subscribe to Tony Comiverse. Definitely go check him out. He does live shows every Saturday going over things that he loves. Of course, I'm on there quite a bit. Was on there just this past Saturday, so definitely go check that out on the rewind. That being said, guys, hopefully you have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are in the world. And as always, my friends, stay freaking nerdy.